Call this meeting to order of the Historic District Commission. I get a motion to adopt the agenda.
Make a motion, we adopt the agenda.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Need approval to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
We have first have a second.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, so at the last meeting, it came up for the yearly election of chairmen and vice chairman, which this meeting, because there's only three of us were here at the last meeting. So we open this up now for election of the chairman.
Nominate Morty Bunny.
I second.
Everybody
Do you want the
nominations?
position? Do you want the
I'm fine,
position?
I'm fine.
Okay.
We have a nomination for Norty Bunny from John Holloway, the second from Ms. Carol Rose. Is there, all in favor? Aye. Is there any opposed? Okay. Vice Chairman, I nominate Laura Stearns as Vice Chairman.
Second that.
Third.
And
Laura, do you want
If I
to
can
sit
make the
on it?
nomination,
Yeah.
but to keep it going as we were doing. And, so all in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed on that? Okay. We're all set then. All right, case 42-2503, which is Heritage Foundation. Melissa, is that you?
That's me.
All
I'm
right.
going to recuse myself since I'm on the board. I'm just going to do the way. That's my fault. So.
Okay. All right,
You just put your head down.
Push it in the corner.
Yeah, I-
Commissioner Rose has recused herself from this the Heritage Foundation, but she's just going to back away from the table here. Okay, unless you have an issue with her just backing away.
I'm okay with
You
that.
want to leave the room?
Okay, John is here.
I don't care, pick that up.
Miss Rose, you don't have to back away from the table. You just would recuse yourself from voting on the application. Just
Well, I usually go
Okay.
out, but this, I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay, all right, Melissa, go ahead, you want to state your name?
Sure. My name is Dr. Melissa Reed. I'm the executive director at the Taylor House Museum. Should I do one at a time, or can I just say, well, I know I'm here for two separate things.
I think we can, Commissioner, do you mind? She can just cover both, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one, first of all, thank you very much for this tonight. The first thing that we've asked for is an additional interpretive sign, which will be on the Baker Street side of the museum. We have one there right now, which looks exactly, the legs are the same, the frame is the same. That one talks about the Taylor House Museum. It was a requirement for us to have an interpretive sign years ago to try and get one of the signs on the highway letting the public know the Taylor House Museum is there. Not sure that ever came through on their end, but it was a requirement that we went through. This one, because we are an arboretum, we were just designated an arboretum. There are only two arboretums on the Eastern Shore. Salisbury University is one, and we are a level 2, I think. And we felt very strongly that people understand, first of all, what an arboretum is and why it's named after Dr. Mary Humphreys. So that's what the sign is. It's going to go literally right next to one that's currently there. Like I said, the same frame, the same legs, everything is exactly the same, just the text is different. But even the design mirrors the one that Brian Roberts did for us, actually, that's currently there. So that's the first thing we're here for. And then the second thing, and I think I may have made a mistake, it's not the side porch we're asking for, it's actually the front porch. And really, it's only just to replace what's there with like materials. It will look exactly the same. We are required to replace everything exactly as it is as part of the easement we are under for Maryland Historical Trust. But like the porch decking is rotting. There's some problems with the steps. So we would like to go ahead and have that replaced exactly as it is now with exactly the same kinds of materials.
And we're talking front porch, so that's
Front
the porch,
porch.
the smaller porch on
Yes.
Main Street.
Yeah, so sorry, I think it said side porch. I don't know whether I made that mistake.
The application is correct. It does say front hand.
Okay, thank you.
I think the fact that the Burley builders are doing it, and they've already done extensive work at the Taylor House, and they have an appreciation for replicating the exact historic look of the Taylor House. I think that speaks a lot. That's a no-brainer. I mean, the fact that you're fixing it, so we can keep it.
So we
Didn't you put a roof on that not too long ago?
We did, so
On
the
that
roof,
part?
yes, and that was actually Burley Builders did that for us. We had an extensive process through Maryland Historical Trust that we had to go through for that roof.
Yeah.
That was difficult because it,
That's where all the bees were.
say again.
The one where all the bees were?
Yes, and they've come back, the bees are back. Yes, so we were like, you know what, the bees are back.
That's a nice place.
Yes, if that's their home, we're not gonna mess with them anymore, so they're happily living in the roof.
Melissa, I'm just saying, this is great, I mean, to do this in arboretum, my memory bank, as old as it is up here, I'm remembering there was a big tree that was on the corner of the property that got cut down, I believe, by the town in error, am I right? At the time, they were supposed to take down, I know, I think Ed was alive then, Hammond at that time, they were taking down a tree that was diseased or ready to go, and inadvertently, they took down a very old tree.
I don't know about that.
What's on that?
I know that we have photos in our files of various trees as they've been taken down over the years. The nice thing that we have done, we have involved a professional tree company now, so they do annual maintenance or periodic
Right.
maintenance on the trees. Because when that huge one came down that was in the middle of the lawn, that was a big loss. So
Yeah,
if
that,
we're-
yeah.
we have requirements now, as an arboretum, we are required to keep the trees in good order, have a plan for what happens as each tree now comes down. Yeah, we're required to have a plan for.
Because nothing like when an old home like that, a 2-3-story house doesn't have it. And I think the perfect example of that is when you look at Robin's Nest.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You know, how that changed the visual for people that are very visual. When those big trees, because of hurricanes, took down those trees around that house, all of a sudden it's sort of, to quote the late Ed Hammond about a house once it became El Casadel cornfield. All of a sudden, all you saw was this house in the middle when all the trees were gone. So I think it's just great. I think designating it an arboretum like that really gives it so much more clout and so much more reality that the landscape does truly affect the home as well. That's my thoughts.
Melissa, with the front porch, so the entire porch is what?
That's a good question. I think it's mostly, we don't think so. It's not our
Okay.
plan to do the whole thing. We know that the problems really are with the main decking of the porch.
Okay.
We're hoping that when he starts to pull off the main decking and those front steps, that we don't find other things, but we've certainly been surprised in the past when they pull off something.
But I mean, we're not talking about any of the columns or anything like
Not
that.
that, that's not as we see it now, it's really just the main decking, yeah.
That's great.
But I guess, does that matter for you all? Like, in other words, if he pulls the decking up and we find more
It
things.
would only, the only thing that how it affects us, if you had to replace the columns, then we would want to know what to replace with,
I
say,
see.
you know, and if you're applying to, and I'm, you know, I know we can put this back exactly the columns that were there, as we've worked with him in the past. But that's the only thing that we would need to know about that. And same with the upper part of the porch area, we would need to know
Understand, yeah.
materials, that kind of stuff,
Sure.
if you get into that kind of stuff.
So
Very-
far, it's not that. So far, it's really just
Okay.
what I'm thinking is, at the very least, the front, that decking, those front steps have got to go, and then possibly some of the railing.
Yeah,
But so far, it seems like everything, the columns and the top are pretty tight. We just had a new roof put on
yeah.
that porch, the flat part of the porch, the last 10 years maybe.
Right, I remember that.
So if we come into bigger problems, we will absolutely come back in front of you all with like material samples. But like I said, it's got to be, we are required to replace it exactly with the same materials as
Sure.
best we can that are there
And
now.
that's what we know, but it's just
Yeah, of course.
pretty much, it's a formality.
Sure.
We have to go through it or pretty much.
Totally understand.
Looks great.
So then what I'm saying back to you, so I make sure that we're good to replace the decking, the steps.
Well, you're gonna get the commissioner,
Oh, sorry.
commissioners will, they will, does anybody else have anything to add to it? Or?
No, I think it's such a nice bookend, as I said, for the town. When I think of it coming in, you know, it's a really done a beautiful job of people that assist and help you with your ideas, Martha.
I think it looks prettier than it ever has.
Oh,
We've been
really?
working so hard, Melissa.
Yeah.
Well, we found a spectacular human being who loves that lawn as much as we do, and he really works hard to make it, it's really beautiful, so it's really Bobby Cornell's work.
It's gorgeous. I did have one comment as far as the sign. I just, as a general rule, I'm not a fan of signs. Some have to be there, you know, just because I think they can take away from the natural beauty of.
Sure.
So I went down and I looked, and also because they don't, some of them don't weather well. You can look at our parks right now, many of them are in need of replacement. So I went down and I looked at the sign that was there, and it's so well made, and it's an attractive sign, and it was in great condition. So I think for that reason, it would be fine. It would, especially if it's butted right up, you know, close to the other one, it would give the appearance of one sign
Right.
rather than two, because there's already a lot of signage around.
Yes.
And I just would like to see it, you know, close to it, so it looks kind of like I said, one sign.
And that's one of the reasons why we put it where it is, because it sort of disappears. In other words, if you're
It
parking
does.
on Baker Street, you can see it, but we knew that we did not want it anywhere near the front.
Mhm.
It seemed to be the best location where it's there, but it's not. It doesn't get in the way of anything that we have along or really people's view of the house.
I can't remember how long has it been there?
6 years?
At least.
So it looks great.
7?
I think it still looks new.
Yeah. And that was Ivy she gave us the company that made that sign, so it's the same company that we're using for this one.
Brian, did you have anything you wanted to add, or? No, Fred? Because you're about, with Fred's being refused. Okay, this is something, anyone want to make a motion? Does anyone?
I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve case number 4-2-25-04. But I wanted, if Nate gets into something on that porch, I mean, he knows. I don't think there would be an issue if you get into a mess or something in there. I think we should
Maybe approve anything unless there is going to be a change.
That's fine. If you make
That's a good
motion.
idea.
You want to make a motion?
Yeah, just go ahead and approve the sign and the repairs to the front porch, and let them proceed with any repairs unless it's something really
Changes the look.
changes the building or something.
Okay.
Anything that enhances that building, the signs, anything I'm all about, so.
So just to make it clear, John, your motion is to restore the front porch into any capacity that would be to be fit by their building. Because that's who we're going to rely on here, and he's a good, rely on him.
He built the exact same porch on Kenwood a couple of years ago. It had the same dental molding and that he copied from this and from Waverly. So he knows these porches. I would trust that he's going to build it exactly like it is.
Okay, so his motion was clarified on the porch, and the second part of your motion was the sign.
Yeah, I think the signs enhance the educational experience there, so, and they look good.
So your motion is as presented for the sign?
The sign, yes.
Okay. All right, you guys got that, how it is. We have a second?
Second.
We have a second here. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone, and I'm an aye. Is there any opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much, all.
All right.
Thank you.
Case number 4-2-2504, it's 208 North Main Street. We get the porch. What's your sign? Okay, I got it. So there's 1 and 2. All right, so case 4-2-2505, 8 Jefferson Street, requesting brick knee wall along sidewalk.
I mean, that's me, but that's not what it says up there.
It said 24 North Main Street.
Taylor Banks is the thing.
Yeah.
Front and back.
Number 7 is
Taylor Banks.
05 is 8 Jefferson Street.
I mean, I'm happy to come up.
Leave early.
I'm sorry, the packet that was
Alright,
on the
okay.
dais was correct. There was an error in the listing.
All right, I didn't have that printout, so,
It should be on the dais, by the computer. There you go.
So Cal would be Taylor's name.
All right.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so 24 North Main Street is next. Hey guys, just introduce yourself. So what you have in mind here.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Ray Robinson with Field Bank.
Oh, Jeff Solcott.
All right, and I know you guys Taylor Bank has been in here before for this.
Yeah, that was July 5th, 23, when I went back my records.
Okay. And what they've come in here, I want you guys to explain maybe why we've come away from doing the original, maybe the plan, and you come to us for a new plan, with a new plan.
Correct. Again, I'm just going to give a brief history, as Ms. Mary Moore alluded to. We have presented something similar to this and was approved in July of 23. When we were started to complete that project, we were unable to. We found a hidden structural support inside the building, so we decided to pause, and we've actually decided to pursue. We're looking to do an executive office renovation in that space now. So we enlisted the help of our longtime architect, Jeff, to help us with that. And so basically what we're looking to do is the ATM in our original rendering was faced more to the right. We're looking to make that more centered into that space, but we're also removing that door, which is direct access to that executive office space. The removal of that door to that executive office space limits direct access, so it basically we will have individuals entering our main lobby. We still have 3 entrances into our building. We have 2 in the main lobby. We have 1 on Broad Street in our rear lobby. We'll be honest with you, our local law enforcement has suggested that we have too many entrances, and I have talked to Chief Downing, and he is in support of us removing that entrance. Okay. Again, you know, it's safety of our staff and customers is paramount. So that's one of the reasons why we come back to you tonight, is to look at that, and also to show you the ATM is more of a centered location in that space. Jeff?
Yeah, so I guess, I've read the information. I wasn't part of the original presentation. The concerns are similar regarding the ATM, about the modernization of the bank, proper equipment. The location where it's been in that little lobby is not handicap accessible. And they've looked at other locations up and down the street, so I don't think we need to rehash. I think you all were on the board, if I remember from reading the notes, that you've heard all that. I would, I guess, add the other thing in the scope is we want to replace the 7 windows up top, and I'm very familiar with the building. I did this design of the facade in the early 1980s.
I was confused by that. Could you take that further? So are you just going to brick it up?
No, we're going to we're just going to replace those old aluminum windows from the 50s.
Okay.
Now that we're renovating that whole front office suite, we just want them to be more airtight and insulated, and we're proposing to put in, if you look at the renderings, gridded windows that have a little more of the character of what's down below.
Got a lot of pages here.
So just any page that shows the upper part, there's 4 or 5 renderings, but there's one that says proposed changes along Main Street. They all say the same thing as far as they're not numbered or anything. But it shows a Marvin Elevate window in a cashmere colored frame, which closely matches the color and trim on the existing building. Just as an interesting sidelight, when I was reading the review that you all did last time, people talked about the historic facade being what I did in the 1980s. It ages me. It was, a glass storefront in the 50s. If you go back to like 1900, there was actually quite an interesting, very historic facade that was completely redone in either the 50s or the 60s. And what's underneath the brick now is just a steel and block facade that was put on in the 50s or 60s. And I'm also old enough to know how important what you all are doing is for the town. You know, I grew up here. I can remember going to have lunch, you know, when there was not a plaza in front of the Atlantic Hotel, and it was just a big old brick block building with Taekwondo and a restaurant in there.
It's a
And
gift shop.
The gift shop.
It's a gift shop, I
And-
think, as well.
Right, and you know, the buildings were all covered with aluminum and everything, and I think that what's happened over the years is just remarkable, and you all know that as well or better than
Jeff,
I
what
do.
year, I'm just curious, what year were you here?
We started our business in Ocean City in 1963, and my mother's favorite thing to do was to come over and have lunch in Berlin and just get away from town where we were working, you know, without a break mostly. So it was kind of, my experience would have been in the mid to late 60s. Yeah.
So we were, I was saying, I moved here in 64, we moved in the house in 65, started renovating it in 64, and I was curious about, and Ray, maybe you know that, the date, am I right? Is that the Burbidge and Powell clothing store that Ernest Burbidge, who lived on Main Street? That was, Carol would know that better than I, because she's a native of Berlin. So is that when you think a lot of the renovation, when Taylor Bank decided to take over the clothing store next door?
Yeah, my understanding was it was a shoe store primarily.
No,
and that-
it was a full-on
It was a clothing store.
It was a full-on men's clothing and.
Uh-huh.
This one was when I was growing up in the 50s. So
Yeah.
this is even before you.
Yeah.
But a lot of that burned in one of the fires.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Maybe that's when it got rebuilt in
That's why
more modern.
everything's brick
Right.
now, is because of the three fires.
And then the other little tidbit is that, you know, at the Secretary of the Interior standards have changed dramatically over the years. So in that 1984, we researched it very carefully. We came before your board that I believe Bob McIntosh was chairing back in the day.
Yes, Bob.
And had a very, you know, often had interesting conversations with him about all this stuff. Because we also I did the big edition where we built the whole around the back, around the back and everything, and that was really interesting. Because we actually took down some pretty historic buildings, but they were in very poor condition.
Gosh, I went on the corner, Ray Robbins, you remember that? The man, and he had a porch upstairs, like Grange Reef. It was like a porch. What kind of business was he in, Carol? On the corner of Broad Street, where they met there, and it was the
I think
bar.
it was
the
a bar,
Wings
right?
Oh, Wings Tavern.
But
Wings
next to the
Tavern, yeah.
tavern on that point was some sort of a shop, Norty. And upstairs, when you came up Broad Street, you could see the porch, so
Yeah.
like a Grange Reef.
And
But-
the drive-through was that one lane through between the
Yes.
two buildings, and that was the
Exactly.
mess, because, you know, it would back up traffic out on the Main Street all the time, and the bank has been successful in growing, and this is all, one thing led to the other.
Well, what's been nice about with the bank, when they had to put in right when you go out the drive-through,
Mhm.
that piece that's got that machinery or whatever, you
And
know.
the generator.
Yeah,
Try to
that was
cover it
a
up with
concern to
landscaping.
me.
Yeah.
And they really had fixed it so that it's always landscape, everything looks nice. And maybe it's because I'm there so much, but you didn't even really notice it anymore.
I'm
So
really sorry to see that
Yeah.
have to go in, but it was requirement of.
we had to have it. I
Federal,
mean,
all that.
it wasn't that we
Yeah.
didn't understand
Yeah.
that. So, yeah.
So when we did this facade originally, where we're now revising it, the standards were that actually in a historic building, you were supposed to do any infill, what they call clearly contemporary. So, you know, you see this whole era of the 70s and 80s, federal projects and all over the world, where people built like glass buildings onto historic buildings because they wanted to make sure the historic kind of wasn't confused with the new. I think it's the standards have changed dramatically over the years. So what we did in the 80s, you know, I was just out of school, it's probably a little more book learning, but there was kind of regional contextualism, there was constructivism, there was like this interpretation of like the arch windows in about every way imaginable as my idea of what was contemporary. And we had this conversation, and it was accepted at the time. I don't know if it would be accepted now, but now apparently there's some sensitivity to it that it's actually become part of the fabric of the town, and it's, you know,
Well, arch
actually
windows
the
have
raw
been
glass
around.
windows that were there.
Well, the
before.
arch windows have been around for a long, long time in architecture, as you well know. And I'm looking at our Berlin Historic District Commission, the guidelines for preservation, rehabilitation, replacing, reconstruction. Windows are huge
Right.
indoors. That is because they become like the jewelry of a building or a house. That's what you see after they see what you've created architecturally. The windows and the doors are really the finishing pieces.
Right,
there,
so-
too, which is
so-
why we're really on top of those two things.
Right,
as well.
and so this has led to, you know, having to take out a couple of windows and now the door, partly out of these security concerns. And we otherwise have left the idea of the trim and paneling matching exactly as before. We've left the transom window in exactly as before what was approved. So really the only change since the approval was the replacement of the windows above and the removal of the door necessitated or, you know, brought on by the increased security concerns over the last year. We have been over it with the fire marshal to make sure it's not a required means of egress. He's in agreement. Matt Owens has been in to visit. So I think in the day when this building was taken over, Mr. Reese Jr. wanted to be right there where people could walk in and go into his office and everybody'd see him on the street. I think now there's a, you know, more need, unfortunately, for more security for some of the higher ups in the bank. And I think if they would prefer to, there's also less need for secretarial assistance. So it has always been that somebody walked in that door and there was somebody there to greet them.
Yes.
Now, everybody's just in their private offices and they're communicating through internet and everything, so they would just prefer that there's one greeter on Broad Street at the back, at the, you know, Broad Street entrance, and there's the people at the teller's counter that greet people that come in the other door, and that's the way they keep an eye on things, so.
Well, in my mind, this is much better than before.
Well,
If everybody else feels that way.
Well, I don't feel.
You don't think so?
No, first of all, let me say, I think that you did a phenomenal job when you did the bank the first time, because you added so much charm. I appreciate the charm of that ATM, and if you've read the notes the last time, I think it's one of the charming things about this town. I work at the Atlantic. I use Taylor Bank every day, both personally and for work. And I use the ATM and it's in there. And I love it because, for one, it's the most charming ATM I've ever seen. I go in there, I feel safe because there's a slide lock on there. In inclement weather, I feel, you know, it's easier to hit the buttons and everything when your fingers aren't freezing or you're not in the rain. I set my purse on the little windowsill. I love that ATM the way it is. And I think that if we take it away, it's going to be one less thing in this town that is so charming. And I think the town has already made a lot of changes, and I want to keep some things the same. I think that putting an ATM on the front of the most historic building, one of the few handfuls of historic buildings in this town, is a mistake. I think that historically, you may be right. You're a trained architect, you know all about everything, but the one thing I know is that this building was a storefront, and every storefront has a doorway. I think it's a mistake. And it's not it's not easy being in this position where there isn't a lot of public support. But we're charged with keeping the historic integrity of the town. And
I can jump in for a minute and help you out here and take a breath, because I know where you're going with this, to say that we also get a lot of criticism
yes,
today,
and
particularly in the last couple of years, with whatever we said here and what was presented to us, we didn't have an enforcer. And what people would say and show they were going to do, did not happen. And it's a heavy burden. I think Carol and I both care deeply. And we are not born and raised natives like Carol is and Nornie is. And
John.
the rest of us are from the other side of the bridge, I guess you would say here if you're not from here, but care deeply about the historic significance. So I hear what you're saying.
10 years. And I think maybe, I don't even think 5 times I've voted against something, because it's hard. When there aren't people in the public that are coming to support you, I don't want to be a bad person for, you guys are nice. Taylor Bank is my bank. But I feel so strongly about this. I think it's sad that we're going to take an ATM and put it on the front of that beautiful building that has charm and character. And I don't want to be sorry that I approved this.
I got a question because
And
you'll have my bad on.
I have one other thing too, the handicapped entrance. I take my baby stroller through there because there's a ramp.
So it's not, you're not gonna do away with the door into the bank and just like move it, it's gonna be right on the street? There's no doorway.
There is no doorway.
There's no doorway. Old buildings,
okay.
all historic buildings were storefronts. And
Right, right.
historically, that was a door. Doors are welcoming, they're charming. This is not right.
Okay, I understand.
And I didn't vote for it the last time. I'm not voting for it today because we have to answer to this. And that's what we're up here for. We're supposed to keep the charm of Berlin. This isn't as good as you are. It's taking away something that I love, and I don't want to see it. So I've said it.
It's the guidelines that we were, for SWIP, that we were brought to
There
our
should be a
attention that we
doorway.
had to, as members of this commission, that there were certain standards that had to be met on this historic commission. And windows and doors were one of the very strongest points that was brought out. So I know what you're saying, Carol, Laura, with that. And I'm thinking, because this certainly is a big improvement over what we saw the first time. I would think, I agree with you on that, Carol, too. And I have that
But I
record
didn't
from that
realize-
from July 5th of '23. And I know a lot of work is thought has gone into this and trying to do it. And I'm sort of course, I would have liked, my thought was let's have it in the drive-in window where a lot of banks ATM, we can drive up there, plenty of light, easy access in and out. I think I mentioned that, and I understand
You
you
could
all have
limit the access on the other side too.
Yes.
On the other side.
And may I interject? Again, I appreciate all your comments here tonight. The ATM that you were talking about, Ms. Stearns, yes, it is a very nice and cute ATM. However, it is not ADA compliant, and those are things that we have to follow. We have to follow ADA guidelines, so that is not ADA compliant. So
But when
one
it's
of
in
the
a
reasons-
historic building,
ADA?
do you have to?
I'm sorry.
I don't think you have to when it's in a historic building.
Yeah, you do. You
Well, then
do.
how can it be there now?
Because when you do improvements, you're obligated to spend a
Does it
certain
need to be
amount
on
of
the
it.
Well,
exterior of the
that shouldn't be
building?
improved, is what I'm saying, it should be
For
left.
ADA requirements, does that be on the exterior of the building?
I'm sorry.
For ADA requirements, does the ATM have to be on the exterior of the building?
Well, for us to meet that, yes.
Well, then it should be moved on the drive-through side or on the other side.
Well, the drive-through side, we have concern with that, because if you put it on our building, you're in a drive-through.
And
Most
up Broad
people
Street.
are walking up, and basically, you're create another issue with people, cars in our parking, in our drive-through.
Well, then
Walk up
Broad
there now.
Street side is huge too. That's a long, expensive building.
I understand, but commercially, this is viable. It's the only place that we can put it where it does not affect our infrastructure. Again, we certainly appreciate your comments, but again, we would like to put it, no, it's not going to be directly on the street. It's actually in the little alcove, so that is set back. It's not right on the street, so it is set back into that little alcove.
The alcove is not changing.
It's just the visual, there's no door, and it's not the cute little spot, but.
One other thing I would add is the existing ATM, they have a security risk concern having the windows there when people go in there to fill the money. There's no secure way to fill the money without, someone standing behind glass doing that. And in the new
What do other banks do out of curiosity, since I'm not an ATM or at banks?
Both.
Like Bank of Ocean City, do they have one in Berlin?
It's on the side.
It's outside.
It's outside. The Bank of Ocean City in Ocean City that I did, which is modeled on a very historic building, is outside, right next to the front door. I just passed that today and
It
saw
just
that.
seems like it could be on Broad Street.
So-
There's another whole entrance there where it could be.
Like the vestibule, you're saying, that vestibule area?
John has a question too, real quick.
Where that's no longer going to be an entrance into the bank, could you preserve the door and make that an entrance into the ATM? So that when you go through the door,
That's what I just said.
you just have the ATM in there. That way the door's preserved and you're not really changing the facade of the building. And when you go in there, it would just be the ATM inside that door.
Like an alcove?
If they're gonna change.
The way it is, way bigger.
Yeah, their whole interior plans, looking at this plan, that whole interior is changing.
Well, they could change it around that. It's still
Well,
in the
it's, you
place.
know,
Just
that,
clarify.
see, this is what I had in my mind, what he just said. And that'll work, that you can't, you know, do whatever they want to do on the inside. It's big enough, they can figure something else out. If they want this, then we gotta have compromise, okay?
I mean, I understand the safety issues as well, so
Oh,
that's not doable, I understand.
Right, and that's a concern that we have, is the safety of, you know, individuals are coming into the bank anymore, not exactly doing friendly banking, so we have to be prepared. And unfortunately, today's times, we have to make sure security-wise, we are protecting our customers as well as our employees. One of the reasons we ask, and again, we have the support by our local police chief. You know, we still have 3 entrances. You mentioned, Ms. Stearns, about entrance with going up the ramp. We still have that available off the Broad Street. We have an elevator that gets you to our 2nd and 3rd floor.
Well, we're saying close off the interior door of that. There's 2 doors you go through to get in the bank. The first one's to the ATM. You could close off the back of that ATM.
It's between office 3 and 4, I see that, so you're saying, it's almost like me walking into the vault or into the safety deposit box.
But you could just close that back, make it a wall instead of a door.
Yeah,
Or
the
just all glass
the
for
dotted
safety.
lines, I
That's
see
what I
that's
thought
what
they were saying.
No, they're picking out the door, the front.
I can't believe that it's an impossibility to put it anywhere else on the exterior of this building.
Again, as far as visibility, you know.
I mean, I know
Main
that
Street
you
is
want to
large.
be on Main Street.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I understand why.
You know, and again, that's where not necessarily all our customers, tourists to visit the local businesses, they utilize that as well. And again, the main thing, again, is not ADA accessible, and we're trying to have it is so it's as visible to the public as we can.
Well, I guess for us, again, as Historic District Commission, representing the mayor and the council, and trying to keep in Berlin, which isn't easy in many ways, the historic, and the word charm to me has sort of a lightweight sound to it in a way. But that it was what makes Berlin unique and different from all the other towns in this area here. And I understand what Carol's saying, and I'm wondering, is there, Jeff, a way that the door could be there and it could be like a vault kind of place where people came in and did their business, locked the door, and then the door closed behind it, it locked again? I mean, I don't know the particulars, but I do agree with Carol that it really gives it a very, very contemporary look. It's really so much better than the first time around, but I would love to think that as bright as you are, we could come up with something that the door would be there, there could be a room that, I mean, ATMs don't take up, how big are most people? I don't know what this scale is when you're doing a room for an ATM machine, like 6 feet by 70 feet by whatever. I mean, how much space it would take out of the Taylor Bank office area. But I see that we don't want to take away from the president's office, I know that.
So why couldn't it just be the same with a wall behind it?
And
Exactly, like I said, like a box.
Right.
You could make a bigger doorway.
Right, you have.
So from a design point of view, it would have to be ADA compliant, which would make it much bigger. The doors would have to swing certain ways. I think it would impact the amount of office space. So the renovation going on the inside is recharged to make it from 3 offices into 6, and I guess.
If it
You
were
can
left
understand
alone,
that
there
that's
wouldn't
not
be an
our
ADA
charge.
issue. If it were left alone, there wouldn't be an ADA issue.
I don't.
And it's
I
not
don't-
our responsibility how big the office space is or how many feet come off somebody's office, because in order to create the door and make it look that way, that we're actually talking about coming in on the office space. And it looks like to me, we got plenty of office, everything being digital, we don't need the big rooms that we used to have for offices with files and all of those things. So I don't know, that's my last thought on that, but I would like to see the doors still there. I really think that block from Rain Street down to the corner, Victorian Charm, the Renaissance Plaza, the old Smith and Cropper Insurance Building, which is now the children's shop, that block up there, that really is, and down where Melissa Reed was here earlier with the Taylor House Museum, they're like bookends, you know, and it is something no one else around here. Snow Hill doesn't have. Easton, the last time I was in Easton, there wasn't anybody on the sidewalk at lunchtime, and I was in the Tidewater Inn looking out the window at 1 o'clock, and I thought, wow, Berlin has more people midday on the streets, the sidewalks, than Easton does. That's a big shock, because I've been there for years ago, so I just traveling thoughts, but I agree, I really want to see you were there.
And again, we're trying to get away from the vestibule, as safe as you may think it is. You know, we have, and I don't want to rehash what we talked about before, but there are found individuals inside. We've had to contact the police to move them out when it does get cold. So again, that's why we proposed to put it out on the street. So if you're a customer or a tourist and you walk up to it, you know, you can see if anyone's around it, so you would not use it. So if you walk up to our vestibule, unfortunately, there may be someone in there that was not there. So that, to eliminate that, that's why we put it out on the street.
Well, I still have to say that I represent the Berlin Historic District Commission, and I can understand the needs of Taylor Bank and the impact on the community. My gosh, we've banked there since Danny forever, since I moved here, and I see all of that. But I feel like I can't say to people, why is it like that? Well, Taylor Bank's offices would have been compromised. That can't be my answer to that. So that's my last statement.
Like, you realize that if you take a vote tonight on this proposal, it's not going to pass, and then you are obligated to wait a year. But we can vote if you all would like to do an extension, and maybe we all work together. I don't know, but that's the options for. I think we probably talked about as much as we're going to talk about. I mean, you understand how we all feel. We understand what you're trying to accomplish. So you want to chat together and let us know. I mean, we'll make a motion either way.
Can you give us some guidance on what you're looking for, or what Jeff?
I think Laura's pretty much, and Mary have really given you the guidance on what we're looking for. And I'm kind of like with Brian, there's got to be another option. Maybe you don't want to really do it, but it just can't be this and nothing else. That building's
If
too
it's on
big.
the exterior of the building, for me, it would have to be not on Main Street side.
That's not.
No,
Taylor Street.
And how far is it? If it's not, if someone has to walk around
You
the
could
corner.
put a sign up there that says ATM.
Yeah, that's,
With a map.
we're walking town.
It's just,
I understand, and there,
it will be it would be, when things progress, what am I trying to say? When businesses progress and things disappear, this would be that, it would be a victim of like the new,
And again,
innovation.
I would say, and I respect both of you, I know both of you banking architecturally, your skills, your education, your talent, I don't question any of that. But as I said, not representing Mary Moore, but representing our mayor and council in the historic district and living in the historic home and caring so much about all this, I cannot answer to people, and they do come up and say, what in the world? Say, well, the bank had to have bigger offices. That just isn't something that can fly with me.
But if you would like, we could vote on windows.
Yeah,
That was still not-
Oh, I
We
think,
could
yeah, that's,
separate windows.
that's beautiful, and that's needed.
I like the windows too.
Yeah.
Let me ask, one other possibility here is that I've noticed through this conversation, first of all, understand this is a place where reasonable people may have different opinions on it. At all challenging, all that. I think that if the main issues are like transparency through, it occurs to me that the big panel to the right of the ATM could be a window. We don't need to access the machine from that side, so we can make the front of the building leaving this configuration, there could be a big window left there that would be just filling in that one big panel, which would be the same height as the one next to it on the angle. And you could see all the way through into the offices there. So if
I'm with Brian. I think it shouldn't be on Main Street. If it
Right,
has to be a doorway.
And I did start this not understanding what you had been through before and believing that this was already approved and we were making it better. So so you please understand where that's coming from. Like all I heard was that it was approved and now we found the structural column in the way, we had to move it over, and then they had these security concerns and wanted to make the windows better. So I'm a little bit caught off guard here with big picture changes. I'm certainly not prepared to talk really clearly about the size of vestibules and walking doors to other offices and how you service the machine. It's all fairly technical. But I do know we could put a fairly large window in immediately to the right side of the ATM and create more transparency at this location, if that would make a difference in consideration here.
Jeff, is the last thing, is it, in your way of thinking as an architect, given the charge from Taylor Bank to create what we're doing here, impossible for you to leave a door on that entrance? That there's no way we could have a door and the ATM being inside and allowing the door, again, as we said, storefronts always had doors, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an
this is a big
architect,
building.
I don't think it's impossible, but my client's clear charge is that for security reasons, they don't want to have a door there.
But the
So
door
then we have a
would be
door
like
there
in a
that-
vault, the door would go like in a vault, like you've got a vault for safety
There's-
deposit
And
boxes.
obviously, we could create a very large vestibule that we could chew out office space. And then, again, my client's concerns have been that
But
they
there's
found
already a
people sleeping in these
vestibule there.
vestibules and all that.
There's already a vestibule there.
I
It would just
understand.
have to be a few feet larger.
And it's been problematic, so they've asked us to do it this way to make it safer and more
Isn't the
convenient.
new machine a lot larger
Yeah,
than
The
what's
machine
there
is
now? That's the
it's
issue.
significantly larger,
Design.
and it's secure in the way that you feed cash into it from the rear.
Yeah,
It's
I
very
thought
different.
that, yeah.
Instead of feeding cash from the front, you feed cash from the rear.
So
You don't
we-
stand in the vestibule with the cash, you have to have another closet adjacent to it.
Well-
None of that's impossible, I'm not,
Well, maybe.
it's just a desire of the bank to have.
Please don't make us
have this.
lose that
Yeah.
charm.
So-
That's awesome.
Okay.
We really, having the door, as I said, when we look at all of our charges we have here with the guidelines for preserving, rehabilitating, replacing, reconstructing, Berlin Historic District Commission, what it is, doors are on storefronts. And when we take the door away from here, and we have a very commercial look of the machine there, again, it's one more building that loses some of its integrity. It was Burbage and Bow, it was a clothing store. It has some historic significance. I think it was a style guide of, not quite as large, but it was a men's store, and it was a shop, it was a business that had a door. And it sounds, I know for people that don't understand that, but the doors and windows historically make the building. So,
Well,
based on that.
Jeff, maybe before you leave town, you'd have an opportunity to walk around the outside and just look,
Well, we designed it for that.
I've got a pretty good idea what's there.
Well,
A lot of pictures.
yeah, but as Brian said, nothing's impossible, so. Okay, do you want to do a continuum?
If we table this, are we able to bring back this sorry, different design, are we able to do that?
That's my
Absolutely,
recommendation to you.
absolutely, yeah.
We can take a table, we can communicate through this. Laura would happily come down, see you.
I'm right there at the Atlantic.
Any one of us can come and meet with you, we just can't all meet with you at the same time.
If you did get rid of that door, where would be the only ADA accessible entrance for anyone that wanted to enter the ring? Broad Street?
On Broad Street.
Broad Street has a elevator that serves the half floor, and it has a ramp that goes up. It's actually a proper ramp. The ramp that goes between the executive suite and into the banking hall is functional, but not fully. It doesn't have like handrails on both sides and all that. It's not fully ADA compliant. It's a convenience access, not a.
Understood.
I'm going to make a motion on case number 4-2-25-05, 24 North Main Street, Taylor Bank, that we table the matter on the agenda this evening, and we will reschedule at the convenience of the bank, when they can try to hopefully figure out a little different than what they showed tonight.
For a continuation, does it need to be posted? Do we need to submit something and then wait 30 days again, or since it's a continuation?
Since it's a continuation, you wouldn't have to meet the 30-day filing deadline,
Right.
since the application has already been submitted. But we do have to get the council packet or the meeting packet out at least a week before the meeting. So let's just say 14 days.
Right, so it's, I'm just, is it going to cost, like if we could come up with
Oh, no.
something in a couple of weeks,
Sure.
we could get on in the month?
Very next week.
And not have to wait 2 months?
No,
No,
sir.
and if it,
we can
I
get
mean, we
right
can
back
always
in.
do a special meeting if we have to, for something that's an emergency.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to table, do I have a second? Second. Have a second, John, all in favor? Aye, and is there any opposed? Okay, so we will table this, and we're being in touch with you.
Thanks for the consideration.
Thank you. Okay, now, 4-2-25-6, 8 Jefferson Street. Hey, Matt. Hello. Introduce yourself.
Yep, my name is Matthew. My name is Matthew Amy. I'm at 8 Jefferson Street. I'm hoping you take it easy on me. Essentially, I have made some changes to pre-approved design elements in the process of building out these renovations. Kind of determined that in the original drawing that was approved a couple years ago, you can see where I have the ramp, and then there's an opening where the previous entrance, the stairs into the building were.
Right.
When I was building the ramp, I realized I didn't need both the ramp and the stairs for the entrance. So when I built the ramp, you can see in the next page where the ramp is built, I still have the original entrance stairs, and there's a gap between my railroad tie retaining wall. The original approval was to take out the retaining wall and replace it with a brick knee wall, which I have every intention of doing, and I'm about ready to do it. But I want to build the wall, the full front along the sidewalk, so that I can landscape behind it and have a nice presentation on the house. So the drawing at the end has the modification to the brick wall with a possible post next to the ramp. The reason for that is because I've already had somebody back into that railing. A guy who was helping me with the house, who is no longer helping me with the house because he backed into my railing. So that's the one change. And then moving the mailbox, I spoke with my letter carrier, and he has no problem if I move my mailbox to the opposite side of the ramp so that it's not directly in view on the street. That's about it.
Okay, basically, we're talking about taking the steps coming straight out of the doorway.
Yes,
Eliminating those.
correct.
And then when you would build the brick across the front, it would go all the way across the front.
Yeah.
Eliminating the entranceway to those steps.
Yeah, correct.
That was
The previous entrance.
Anyone have any questions or anything?
I like how the brick ties in with all the brick in town, and I don't think it makes much difference. It makes it less confusing, actually, I think.
I just like it because it's a perfect flow, and when you look across the street at the hotel, it looks better than me. I like
Yeah,
that.
I think it looks fine. What do you guys think?
Okay, it's not a need, stuff that's not needed, the steps weren't, you don't need it, why put it there? All right, does anyone, Mary, did you have anything you want to add?
I don't think it looks great, honestly. It doesn't have any historic significance to me, Crawford Atlantic Hotel. It is what it is. I agree to it. I'm looking at your banister rails you have up there, for lack of a better, and they look like they're going to a marina, that you're walking down to a pier or a marina. It certainly doesn't look like you're part of an older homestead, which is what I would say this was originally, that is now going to be your business. Am I correct on the first floor?
It has been my business since 2016.
Okay, well, and you, I forget, you're an artist, what, you're a metalsmith?
I do a little bit of everything. I paint, I sculpt, I make jewelry,
Okay.
dabbling in ceramics. My profession is I'm a tattoo artist, have been for 30 years. I have been renovating this house for the past 10 years that I've lived in it in an effort to revitalize an old, what I considered an eyesore when I bought it. I've been in front of you a couple times in an effort to get approval for some of the changes that I've made to try and keep the kind of farmhouse look, even though it's right off the main street.
Well, I live in a farmhouse look, so I know
Well-
what a farmhouse look is. No, it's a big improvement, but when you buy an old home, most of them are run down. If you get a good price, and if you want to be in the neighborhood, you want to be in the historic district, whatever, and they aren't up to snuff, whatever, they are going to be run down, and they are going to need a lot of care. And I think what's disappointing for me sitting here is that there's so little architectural character, that this looks like a period in time, early 1900s, wherever, late 1800s, and the banister rails and the choice of your woodwork to go in and out, to me, as I said, it looks like you're going to a marina. It
Well,
doesn't look
I
like you're in a
appreciate your
historic
opinion.
home in a farmhouse.
I
You never see
appreciate your
something like
opinion,
this.
but you did approve this
Yeah,
a couple
we
years
approved.
ago.
Well, you wanted my opinion, I'm telling you, as I sit here as a council member.
Well, but I'm just
When
curious
I see
why-
visually, I had not seen this as a rendering. I saw what it was originally when I looked at it as it is today. Godspeed, but I can't tell you, I think it's wonderful. But everyone else has a choice to say that. It's disappointing, I would say. My word to be, it's disappointing.
Well, it's not the first time
what
I've
you've
done a
done.
disappointment to this council, so.
Well, that's interesting. I'm glad that's fine.
All right, good. Anybody else, or does anybody else have any questions for Matt or anything? Does anyone want to entertain a motion?
I will entertain a motion. With the right glasses on, please. On case number 4-2-25-06, 8 Jefferson Street, we approved the brick knee wall going all the way across the front of the property as shown in the drawing.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? A second. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. And any opposed? Okay. Okay, so you are, it's passed for you to go, and you're good, and I'll sign it.
Also with the mailbox,
Oh, mailbox, him moving the mailbox, you want
I don't even think that's anything we even have to
Those
be worried
are
about.
good.
That's
Okay.
federal,
I
yeah.
just want to make sure I don't want to
Yeah.
make changes.
I believe you're good
You're
there.
gonna remove the steps and all of that, is that what you?
Yeah, I intend to landscape, and I got, my flowers are coming back. I just re-landscaped the side yard that's been my construction site for the better part of 6-8 years. Everything's coming back, spring's looking nice. So I'm hoping to get those steps out of the way so that we can get this knee wall built, and then I can continue with the landscape.
Very good. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, case number 42507, 101 North Main Street. Waterworld. All right, welcome. Just state your names and then you intend to do. And what is it that you have here? What are you?
Renovated the old Church Mounts thrift shop.
Okay.
And so we're just requesting signage for that.
Okay. All right, that's pretty basic and everything. Anyone?
Well, I went in there, I stopped in just to check it out, and it looks beautiful.
Thank
And you had a lot of cool merchandise. I was kind of surprised at how much good stuff they had, so, right off the bat, so congratulations.
We did.
I don't have any problem with this.
I saw photos, but I haven't been in yet, but it looks really nice.
We did 100% of the work ourselves except for electric.
That's great.
Demolition, the paint, the ceiling, the floor, the trim, I repaired the original back door, repainted it with the original color, added a motion light in that alley, which was the only dark spot in downtown.
Yeah, well, it's
Cleaned
not
it
the
up
only
very well.
one, but yeah.
Added, the only thing we purchased inside were two turn of last century general store display counters, and then we built everything else.
Well, it's paying off, it looks good.
Thank you. Thank you. It was,
Lot of love put into it.
I had the fortune of living at Snowshoe, West Virginia, Lewisburg, West Virginia. I had a lot of family there, which was one of America's coolest small towns in the past. And then was spent 20 years in Nags Head. And so I understand and I lived very close to Berlin for a reason. Because I understood the small town, the necessity of kind of trying to keep it there. So we tried to keep that, but also throw a little bit of modern and some stuff people hadn't seen before. So
Well, it's a perfect size, because it's not a huge storefront. It's a perfect size for what your merchandise
Yep,
is,
yep.
and how you got it. I got it. Looks nice.
we've got a few more items coming, so this should be a full weekend.
Very warm welcome. So, anyone want to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve case number 4-2-25-07 as presented.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. And any opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. Ray, thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
All right, so the public has multiplied for us. Does anyone from the public have anything to bring before the Historic Commission? Anyone from the staff have anything to bring before the commissioners?
I wanted to make sure, I didn't realize when Melissa came that it was two different cases. I just want to make sure I think I made a motion to put it all together, but just for the record, both of the cases were approved.
Yes.
I believe so, because I think it came out that the signage.
With the exception of anything that said it needs to be changed for the front porch, that would come back to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
I think at this point, the biggest problem that's out there is the property on North Main Street, on South Main Street, that they broke. That's one thing that we approved that we feel.
Well, if they built the house first,
Yes.
but, that's not us. That's whoever gives the building for all that now, so.
Brian, are you familiar with that property? We approved a property on South Main Street, and they didn't build the house. First. They built
The pole shed.
and it's been it's an eyesore on North Main Street and has been.
we're just curious what's going on. If they're planning to come back and finish the house, is that all they're doing
I
now?
have not heard any word from that property owner.
Nate Song's going.
Yeah.
What?
And I hear it from a lot of people in town because I, work in a public place. A lot of people have come to me and said, what is going on with that property? That's all.
But that's not our responsibility, really. I mean,
No.
The town has fully electric service, I do know that.
I was just curious. Well, it looks like the next meeting is here.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Yep.
Second.
Second. All right. Meeting adjourned.